does, I want to talk about the static site generation process. So if you are familiar with Nuxt or Next, there's this concept of static site generation, which basically ahead of time, there's a build process that builds your site and goes through each of the routes and loads up all the JavaScript in order to render the page. And it will just statically save that and put it in a file. And then when you deploy the site, you're actually just deploying a JavaScript bundle and all these static HTML pages that JavaScript bundle uses to serve to the customers. And so we'll talk through a couple of pros around SSG for e-commerce specifically. What we found over the years, as I've been in agency work and now in a product, SSG provides really unmatched performance and scale through the deployment process. If you think about like having an in-house server using Magento serving your website, that's like a single point of failure for that server to be serving all the requests for the site. You maybe have like a more distributed approach with using AWS or something like that. You still have a level of constraint that you might have around, total number of users that can hit that at any point in time, just based on how you can orchestrate the servers in that way. So with SSG and deploying it through a CDN, you really limit the constraints of scale. You're basically limited by the CDN's scale, which is pretty massive. And we've seen that CDNs are the most fault tolerant in terms of, well, unless it's, unless there are internet outages going on, but that affects everybody. So no one's gonna, everyone's having problems when that's a problem. But we've seen that CDNs are the most effective way to host e-commerce sites. I know this is Jamstack conference, so everybody understands this value. So another pro is like this deploy pipeline is great for building features, rolling back. So, a marketing team can review the work that the engineering organization is putting out before it goes live, and there's just a nice organized flow around that. And so that's really good, just the pipeline that you get out of using SSG. We used to use Shopify just out of the box, hosted Shopify. And, if you've been in Shopify world, there's a theme update process that you have to go through when you want to make changes, and that can be challenging. It can be a little scary to push new code into a live environment that way. So having this build deploy pipeline is really helpful. Shopify does have some features to mitigate some of that, and they have ThemeKit, but really using a full software development lifecycle to really build stores is much safer. And then another pro of SSG is, with Next and Nuxt, you get client-side routing and that app-like feel. So you get page transitions, smooth animations. And this is like a really key thing that we found for a lot of merchants is having that client-side routing so that they feel like it's as close to an app as possible without having to do the whole App Store download experience. So let's talk a little bit about some of the cons, because there are cons. The main thing is stale data. So what happens when you have a SSG and e-commerce is you have your build process that is happening, on a consistent basis, whether it's every hour, every half an hour, or using, incremental static regeneration with Next. there is still a likelihood of there being stale data, and having, you come to a PDP, a product page, and it says in stock, and you click you click add to cart, and then you go all the way to checkout and realize that it was actually sold out 10 minutes ago, and you just wasted your time. Now you're maybe frustrated with the merchant for like, wow, why is this not in stock anymore? You said it was. This is just because of the latency involved, the inconsistencies with, you built this data ahead of time using your build process, and now in order for that to be updated, you have to wait for the next build to come around again. So this is a problem for merchants at scale that maybe are using a drop model where they have limited quantities of product that they want to release, and within 15, 10, 20 minutes, like, they're out of stock. There's just no way to be able to regenerate fast enough to handle that. And ISR does solve some of these problems, but when you think about how much of the site may have to get updated in order to facilitate that being consistent, it sort of still falls apart. So how do we fix this? And we've been working on some features for our platform that will solve for this. And so how we're thinking about this and how I've proposed we solve this is using Websockets. So essentially what we get here is we get access to a real-time API that will allow us to subscribe to particular data changes. And whenever that changes, then the front end will get updated. So we have this build process that's running on this hourly basis, creating pages. And then when a user visits the site, it's hydrated at runtime. If you're not familiar with that term hydrated, what that means is it takes the static HTML, and there's also usually a script tag that is also sent to the browser. That script tag will then load Vue or React on top of that static HTML, and then it will essentially mount in place a whole app over the top of that. You don't see it as a customer, but behind the scenes, that framework is getting sort of put in place, and then the DOM can react to changes based on data that might change that the app is keeping track of. So now what we can do is properties that need to be dynamic are updated as new data is available. So you get this fast loading static site, but then you also get the ability to in place override values for particular pieces of data. So what does this actually mean for merchants that want to use this? It means that out of stock status can be reflected immediately as soon as the e-commerce platform indicates that there is a change. So, this is something that I don't think a lot of e-commerce merchants have even thought about. I think a lot of designers even haven't thought about this concept of, if I'm on a product page and it goes out of stock, like the moment I'm visiting the page, how do we actually display that to the user? Do we need to make this animation of the add to cart button, slowly fades away and is replaced with a, sign up for back in stock alerts? Or is it a pop-up that shows up, or, something more maybe interesting? I think the cool thing about this is it enables other exciting real-time use cases, such as quantity counters. You see a lot of times merchants use, 20 remaining, buy now. But a lot of times those are not real. Those are if you look at the code, it's actually just it's just counting down some arbitrary fake numbers in JavaScript, and it's not actually honest. So this would enable merchants to have honest quantity counters. to signal scarcity. And it's true scarcity, because if they're tying it to what they have in their inventory, I think that can be actually a benefit, and also sort of connect the digital storefront with that in-store buying experience that people don't get a lot of times when they're shopping online, with there's this big line at the door, and you oh, there's only 10 of those. I know I'm probably not going to get it. But you still want to be a part of that. So I think that's something that we get out of this. And so I was going to have a demo, but because of the issues that we had working through this, I'm not going to have an opportunity to do that. But I do want to open it up for Q&A. So Alfonso, awesome. Thanks for following. So yeah, I'm at Levi Whalen on Twitter, and I love talking to people about Jamstack, e-commerce, JavaScript in general, music stuff, whatever kind of things you guys are interested in. I think I'll be here. I'll hang out and stop presenting for a little bit. If anybody from my team wants to jump back in, you can feel free to do so, and I'll hang out for a few minutes and answer questions if there are any. Yeah, so Drew is asking, is Nacelle for stores of any size? So that's a really good question. To date, we've really focused on, mid-size. So what is mid-size? Low thousands of SKUs. But I definitely think that it can scale much greater than that. And using some parallel generation processes that we're also working on, that would be something that I think would help to do that more efficiently for larger stores. So yeah, that's one thing that definitely will help that. Can we use Nacelle to deploy a personal shop online? So that's a great question. So right now, we don't have usage-based pricing. So pricing is a fixed number. And so, I think you can definitely chat with our sales team to see how that might fit for you. But most of our merchants are, mid to enterprise level, e-commerce merchants. So it's priced sort of accordingly to that. So yeah, I think there's going to be some updates to that in the future, possibly. So keep a lookout for any of that. Yeah. So let me just ping my team really quick just to see if anyone else is hanging out here. So yeah, so customizing core features. So that's a good question. So essentially, one thing that you can do with Nacelle is you can send in data into it, whatever data you want, and so that will allow you to really customize the experience on the front end. And so, that's one way you can customize the data and get custom data in there, as well as we will take take any metadata that you put into a product and allow you to use that on the front end. So Gina's asking, how much of the data about products is delivered in real time via WebSockets? Yeah. So you'll actually be able to specify what properties that you want to listen to on the front end, and so it's basically up to you to determine what that is. Cool. Awesome. Okay.